The election of the 35th President of the United States in 1960 ended up getting assassinated over at Dallas in 1963. The 35th President in American history was John F. Kennedy. So let me show you exactly that he is the 35th President. There he is, first Catholic President in the history of the United States. He was the 35th President of the United States, and he happened to be the first Catholic President in American history. It is because in Gematria, it is Catholic that equals 35. Now, when we talk about right equaling 35, we are talking about the Civil Rights Act, because John F. Kennedy wanted to get the Civil Rights Act passed during the time of his presidency, and it would just be really chaotic if the South had a Northern president after the ultimate betrayal of the Civil Rights Act. And so that's why I believe that's partially why JFK got killed, was because of the anger and alienation of the southern part of the Democratic Party. JFK was the 44th, he won the 44th election. That's pretty interesting that he ended up dying. It's because it is Kill that has Gematria of 44. And if I scroll up on the Gematrinator, you would also see that, you know, the Catholics believe in the Messiah. Jesus was there to die and to save yourselves from your sins. It's the Messiah that has Gematria of 44. It is also Chosen One that has Gematria of 44. I think that's partially why John F. Kennedy was the first Catholic president in the 34th edition of the U.S. election. So that 44 has a lot of significance with death and with religious prophecy. And continuing on here, it's Kennedy that is from a notable, prominent, wealthy family in American politics. The Kennedys belong in the same group as the Rockefellers, in the Roosevelts, and all of these other elite families in America throughout the decades and throughout the century. Now, John F. Kennedy was a senator from Massachusetts. He won the election with 303 electoral votes. That is a lot like 33. It's Kennedy, it's Massachusetts that has Gematria 33, so no coincidence Kennedy won that scripted election with 303 electoral votes. It's because it's all a tribute to the Masonic element of Catholic Church, the Jesuits, as well as the prominent Kennedy family themselves. An elite family winning the election. No different. Trump and Bush and all these other families that end up winning elections. Masonry, liberals have Gematria 33, and notice how John F. Kennedy, there were 34 prior presidents before the 35th president, John F. Kennedy. So there were 34 prior presidents before him. That's why John F. Kennedy was supposed to be this anti-establishment president who the elite were going to end up assassinating. Because it's murder that has Gematria 34. It is Lee Harvey Oswald that killed him. Harvey has Gematria 34. It is JFK that is a Democratic president. It's Democrat that has Gematria 34. Now let's talk about the Gematria of 79 with Democrat, Harvey, and murder. A Democratic president ended up winning in 1960. It's 1960 that is a 79 year in numerology. And this is why the Gematria significance of Harvey being the planned murder for hire by the CIA. The fact that it's the Gematria of murder of the Democratic president that all equals 79. This really shows how this election is scripted, and partially had to do with JFK wanting a Civil Rights Act. It's African that has Gematria 34. Why did JFK win the election with 22 states carried? Well, number one, notice that JFK died on November the 22nd day of the 11th month. He ended up winning the election with 22 states having carried. It is the biggest city of where he's from, Massachusetts. Boston that has Gematria of 22. It's Jesuits in Lee that have Gematria of 22. When we talk about Lee Harvey Oswald, a hired gunman of the CIA, Lee, Dallas have Gematria of 13. Notice how Jack Ruby killed the killer. So the killer wasn't allowed to speak out after this planned assassination. He was supposed to be this lone gunman, and we never hear Lee Harvey's account. He ends up getting assassinated right away in a police station. And true story, the killer of JFK's assassin, Jack Ruby, told an FBI informant to watch the fireworks hours before JFK's assassination. So Jack Ruby knew that JFK was going to die on the day of the assassination. And he was the guy that was going to shoot the CIA's murder for hire. That is how Jack Ruby fits into this equation. It's Dallas, Texas. It's Jack Ruby. It's the CIA. It is Assassinate that has Gematria 28. Notice how it is Assassinate in City of Dallas that have Gematria of under 27. Notice how it's the CIA in City of Dallas that equals 46. Understand that John F. Kennedy was not a hawk at all. The military-industrial complex wanted JFK killed too. Notice how in Gematria, before I get to this, that when I type in military, it's military that has Gematria 44. So the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned about, no doubt about it, they had a hand in this assassination of John F. Kennedy. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. These contractors of the United States government had a role in this assassination of John F. Kennedy. So I need to copy that. John F. Kennedy's death has Gematria of 188, and so does war contractors. It's because John F. Kennedy ignored his advisors during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Are we gonna nuke Russia, or are we gonna cease fire and not have a full-on war? Was he gonna take those Cuban threats seriously to nuke the Soviet threat seriously to nuke Cuba? And the answer was that we're not going to attack. We're going to prevent war. And so the CIA, the far-right CIA, and the military industrial complex was wanting JFK to go to war. Well, he had a failed Bay of Pigs invasion in Cuba during his presidency. And then JFK was certainly reluctant to invade Vietnam. At the time of JFK's death, there was no guarantee that they were going to plan a full-scale invasion in Vietnam. The United States just had supplies and military advisors in the region, but they did not have actual troops over there. And up until the time of JFK's death in 1963, Kennedy was not going to go to war with Vietnam. He assessed the situation in April. We don't have a prayer of staying in Vietnam. Those people hate us. They're going to throw our asses out of here at any point. But I can't give up the territory to the communists. So there's a pressure, this talking point about communists ruling the world. This was what the war powers were wanting. And so JFK was struggling between doing what was right for the American people and doing what the elite in the CIA and the military industrial complex wanted him to do. And so all the way up until November, there was no invasion of Vietnam to the time of his death. So there was no guarantee that JFK was going to prevent Vietnam, but certainly no decision was made on Vietnam up until the time of JFK's death. So that's what happened with that. And then the informant knew about the killing. Oswald, his killer, Jack Ruby, lived for 4 years. He had a retrial, but then he had lung cancer, and so Jack Ruby's retrial never happened. But my theory was that he was in really cushy lavish police custody if the FBI allowed him to kill John F. Kennedy. Now, in the Gematria Calculator, I'm going to scroll up here and just continue to break this down and show you where I'm getting all my talking points from. So, there's the fact that this shooting was scripted. Now, keep in mind that Oswald has Gematria of 20, and he's from the South. It's South that has Gematria of 20. It all boils down to the Civil Rights Act. JFK was wanting to pass a Civil Rights Act, and so that would anger the South. And it would never happen to have a Northerner as president with the South being angry and betrayed. This is why there was a plan to put this anti-establishment man in president and put a Southerner, Lyndon Baines Johnson, right behind him. There's a reason for that. Assassin, South, Oswald, death, John, all have Gematria of 20. Who assassinated JFK? That's a great question. The military-industrial complex for the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's the city of Dallas, Texas, that left people wondering who assassinated JFK. People speculate that John F. Kennedy's actions in the Cuban Missile Crisis to prevent war really pissed off the military-industrial complex. Oh, who can forget about privatized central banking? The Federal Reserve bankers had JFK killed because they wanted to print money so he can go to war with Vietnam. And it's JFK that issued Executive Order 11110, which gave the Treasury the right to issue silver certificates and created as American silver certificates. It was a transition period under Kennedy's plan to eliminate silver certificates and use the Federal Reserve notes. So the Federal Reserve was not happy that this Treasury had the authority to issue silver certificates, stripping the Federal Reserve of its power, and this did not make the bankers happy at all. I kid you not. They absolutely were going to use this against JFK at any moment in time. And this is why this assassination was planned from the beginning. Because Lyndon Baines Johnson was a 2-3 hour drive, I think it is, away from Texas. Stonewall, Texas was where Lyndon Baines Johnson is from. And I can type that in a second, but Stonewall to Dallas, distance-wise, is really close, and that was where Lyndon Baines Johnson was born at. And you see here that I just hate how they don't give out. That's a 2-3 mile drive there. It doesn't give out the entire distance, which I don't like about that. But going back to the Gematrinator of murder and Democrat and Harvey, it's JFK that was born on May the 29th, and May the 29th adds up to 34, and this is partially why he was president after 34 prior presidents in the history of the country. And the birthday numerology and death day numerology. Let me just go up here to... I thought I had the page here, but I forgot that I had to scroll down. So John F. Kennedy's birthday numerology, his birthday numerology, the year that he got assassinated, I can let you know what the significance of that is. He was born during the World War I. May the 29th of 1917 is a birthday numerology of 51. Now, when we talk about 51, a lot of questions surrounded John F. Kennedy and his death, and it's because his death was itself a conspiracy. And so the powers that be knew that his birthday numerology is 51, and so they planned his death around this for sure. And now May the 29th of the year 60 in 1960, that is a date numerology of 113. What do I think about with 113? I talk about dishonest. I talk about the mainstream here, who ask you all these questions about Jack Ruby's death, but they tell you that, oh, he's a lone gunman. So the Federal Reserve Bank was part of this because JFK wanted to issue silver certificates. The Cuban Missile Crisis and all this. JFK 27, Cuba 27, Soviet as Gematria 27. Once again, the Cuban Missile Crisis can be noted with the death of John F. Kennedy and the powers that be really wanted a full-on war. And so the question is who killed Kennedy? The powers that be, the Illuminati, the people that control the government and the politicians. So serve thy beast. The amount of time from John F. Kennedy's birthday to the day of his death was 177 days. That is the gematria of the mark of the beast. That is the gematria of who killed Kennedy. It was the CIA. It was the military-industrial complex. It was the International Federal Reserve bankers. Right? Those were the ones that killed JFK. It was the mark of the beast. They were the killers of John F. Kennedy. 177th day after his last birthday, the beast killed him. And it's simple that it all boiled down to Vietnam. It had to. There's no other way around it. There's no other way around the fact that it's Kennedy that has gematria of 33 in Massachusetts, and the fact that he dies on November the 22nd, that's a 33 day. Right? You can't tell me that that's not a coincidence, because all these numbers have meaning. November the 22nd of 63 having a date numerology of 96. How about the fact that it's the Federal Reserve Bank that has gematria of 96? How about the fact that it is the Great Society of Lyndon Baines Johnson after his death that equals 96? How about the fact that all these elitists are all secret society Masons? And so all the people that killed JFK because he wanted to fight off the establishment, understand that it's not one group. That it is a variety of groups out there that had him killed. And so that goes back to Stonewall, where Lyndon Baines Johnson was born at. Stonewall has gematria of 31. It's I think it's Killer that has gematria of 31. Lyndon Baines Johnson, understand that Lyndon Baines Johnson, his inauguration was on November the 22nd. He is from Texas. JFK's death was at Texas. Lyndon Baines Johnson became the president at his home state. This is how much we're talking about an inside job with this killing. Understand that the anti-civil rights people had him killed. A whole Southern society had him killed. Had JFK killed. There's no doubt about it. That's what happened. He got inaugurated over at Texas. Ready? The Texas native knew this all along. Now, how about August the 27th? How about the birthday of Lyndon Baines Johnson? Because obviously his inauguration, he became president over at his home state. He knew what was happening. Alrighty, when you include the end date here, this is 88 days from his birthday to November the 22nd. You know what that's the gematria of? That's the gematria of murder. Murder has gematria of 88. He knew he was gonna die on that day. There's no doubt about it. How did the vice president not get hit? Where was Lyndon Baines Johnson at over at Dallas on that day? He was sworn as the president on Air Force One after the killing of John F. Kennedy. I want to say that is a 25 day. That's 30. Let's see. 19 is, that is, no, it isn't. No, it isn't, because if you're talking about the date numerology of the killing, 1963 is 19 and 19 is 1. And 33, that all adds to the 34. So that was a 34 day that he got killed. Because November and 22 are master numbers, so they don't reduce. 1963 is a 19 year. 19 is 1, so that's gematria of murder once again. And Harvey Oswald. And now, let's go to Lee Harvey Oswald. Born on October the 18th. Notice that's the gematria of assassinate, October the 18th. This loner Lee Harvey Oswald, a hired man of, I think he had some military experience before. He had some military experience. October the 18th, the time span to the assassination is 35 days. And now that relates to JFK being the 35th president, the first Catholic president. I showed you earlier that it was Catholic, that is Gematria of 35. This is why these elections are all scripted. Understand that. And this is exactly what we're talking about right here. It shows how involved all these groups were with the assassination. And notice on the 13th week of the year, ever since his birthday, that's when Lyndon Baines Johnson became president. And that's not by coincidence. Look at this. Lyndon has Gematria of 84 and 30. Vietnam, he was the president of Vietnam. JFK's death having Gematria of 84 and 30. Lyndon Baines Johnson, he was a part of the group that had John F. Kennedy killed. He was the civil rights president, but I will just have to talk about that in a different video. So that is the whole significance of all this. The Deep South had JFK killed. The South has Gematria of 35. Killed the first Catholic president. The racist, warmongering, right-wing, anti-communists, the military-industrial complex, the Federal Reserve Bank, and the racist South had him killed. All these groups had this guy killed, JFK. And so I can talk about the significance of the election itself. November the 8th of 1960 is a date numerology of 98. That's Gematria of Chosen One. We talk about, Jesus and Catholicism, Messiah and the Chosen One. This was some symbology with the first Catholic president in the United States. And November the 8th of 1960 itself has the date numerology of the Gematria of murder and all of that. And it shows you how much of an inside job this killing was, everybody. He knew where he was. He was living in cushy custody, in the police, in his own room, his own ward. Okay, that's what was happening. Lee Harvey Oswald, when did he die? November the 24th. That was how many days after his... Okay, he died 2 days later, so that'd be like 36 or 37, I think. That's born in a year numerology of 22, the killer, and Kennedy's 22 states that he won in 23. He had a date numerology of 32. Lee Harvey Oswald was born on a 32 day. You can talk numerology all day. You can, and I prove with this video. That's a date numerology of 32. That's Gematria of Johnson. That is the Gematria of... Where's Johnson at? Where's Johnson? Right, that is the Gematria of Johnson. Where did I have this? I didn't include it here. Okay, so Lee Harvey Oswald was born on a 32 day. Johnson has Gematria of 32. It is assassinate that has Gematria of assassinated that has Gematria of 32. This is why Johnson became president after an assassination. It's assassinated that equals under 31. It is John F. Kennedy that ended up getting assassinated. And the one guy who told, the one informant who told us that he knew about the death of John F. Kennedy, he goes by the name of Bob Vanderslice. He was the FBI informant who found out that Jack Ruby, he was saying that there's going to be bullets later on that anticipate something about to happen. So this death was planned by the elite. It was completely coded by the numbers, and it shows why the last great American president was a Democrat, and that is John F. Kennedy.